The co-living market today is a $6.5 billion market with only 2.5% penetration. So this is a big opportunity for companies like us and other players to go and take advantage of this. And this is expected to grow to 14 billion with an 8.5% penetration.
Hey guys, welcome to Backstage with Millionaires. I'm Caleb, your host, and today the guest that we have on the show is Prabhat. He's one of the co-founders of YourOwnROom, which is a proptech and co-living company that's solving the living challenges of millennials across the metros of India. So before co-founding YourOwnROom, you spent a good chunk of your career running large businesses for enterprises, and a big chunk of the work that you were doing with these companies was managing employees, right? Many of these employees were sort of in their 20s. They're people like me. Well, maybe not quite like me because I'm Canadian, but these are Indian people that are constantly moving from one apartment to the next, right? I think young people typically were more transient. Once you start to build a family, then you want to settle down, you want to find a house, or you want to find a long-term living situation. But young people, I think they're typically moving around a lot, right? I guess it's at that point that you started to realize that there's some problems in this space here in India where young people are not having the easiest time with their living situations.
Absolutely. If you really look at it very closely, you will notice that most enterprises, if you were to look at the workforce pyramid, 80% or more are millennials. These are young folks who move from tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities, and even tier 4 cities to the metros. And they seem to have several challenges when it comes to living. First, there is a lot of discrimination, in terms of gender, in terms of religion, in terms of community, and so on. Second, they don't get access to good quality properties. So they'll end up staying in probably some shabby PG accommodations and so on. And last, they'll end up paying hefty deposits, hefty rents, etc. And as you very rightly said, many of them are going through a very transient phase in life. They're going through a perpetual transition personally and professionally. And what is required is a more comfortable living experience closer to work.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you will also see that the city's infrastructure, especially the metros, is crumbling. Traffic is a big challenge, pollution is the other big challenge, the sewage system, etc. All that needs a lot of work. So keeping all that in mind, getting the right place close to where you work and a comfortable, safe, secure place is probably one of the biggest priorities for these individuals.
It's huge. Yeah, it's a huge challenge. I think coming back to what you said about discrimination, I think sometimes people don't realize that it's everybody, right? It's everybody being discriminated against by everybody else, right? All of these property owners, these landlords, they have preferences, right? Some of them, it's, they're preferring to have a woman staying in the space, or a man to stay in the space, or a family to stay in the space. But
you're absolutely right. If you were to look at this entire thing from an owner's perspective, you will notice that there are two distinct things. One is that owner does have a preference. In the past, the ideal tenant was probably a stable family, which created probably less of noise in the apartment or houses. But today, if you look at it, the demography has changed, and with 80% of millennials working in companies, there's a new demography of tenants. The second, what the owner requires is a stable revenue stream, in the sense regular rental, so that the EMIs can be taken care of and so on. And third, they do not want nuisance in the properties. And if these three issues are solved, I think owners are okay.
So when you realized that this was a problem that a lot of young people were facing, what was the first step that you took towards actually solving this problem?
So the first thing which I did was I basically looked at it as a larger demand-supply problem. So on one hand, you have demand coming from a very deserving demography. On the other hand, there's supply which is lying idle and empty. It's very important for us to realize that there are about 12 million vacant properties and 500,000 ready and unsold properties. So that's a very large number.
That's in Bangalore or across India?
We're talking about the 7 metros.
7 metros. Okay.
So that's a big number. So the question is, can we repurpose some of these properties and direct it towards this particular demography? And that's the way we looked at it. And we felt that technology plays a very critical role in this entire space. And of course, conceiving the right product. And that is where the whole concept came of a co-living product, because fundamentally people want safe properties, they want close to office, and they want a little bit of a private space with a community along with it. So co-living is a solution to that. And that's how we kind of started. We said, let's try this out with the first set of 20 properties. And the experience was good. We had our own learnings. And then we started scaling this across Bangalore. So we operate in about close to 15 micro markets. So these are where you have high density of working professionals. And then we decided that we need to take it to other cities and so on.
Coming back to, I think typically people focus a lot on the demand, right? But I think starting off, it would have been actually more challenging to find the supply than it would have been to find the demand, right? There's always...
From a supply perspective, it was important that we found the properties that fit our criteria, which is they need to be close to offices, they basically need to have less maintenance issues, and they typically need to be furnished. So when we started scouting for properties, what we realized is that we had challenges getting properties in the best of the best locations, because obviously the demand is too high. So we said, let's stay away from that. Then we had an excess supply in areas which probably nobody wanted to stay. So we said, let's stay away from that. So whatever was in between, right, which is good property in an average location or an average property in a good location. So this turned out to be our sweet spot. So this is when we started trying to acquire properties. The initial selling was a little difficult to the owners because, the owners were asking some of these questions that we just spoke about. So we started giving them the confidence by taking one at a time, running it for some time and so on. And once we were able to provide stability in terms of good screen tenants as well as making sure that the rentals, etc., were flowing on time, I think most of them decided to renew the contract. And if you really look at it, that was our aha moment to a certain extent, where we felt that if we can do this job sincerely, owners are more than happy to engage us. And then it's just a matter of getting the commercials right.
Okay, so that was sort of the story in terms of the supply side. And then coming back to the demand side, I think there are a lot of platforms out there that people like myself and young millennials can choose from. So I'm curious to know what differentiates Your Own Room from some of the competition in this space.
We strongly believe that there are two specific things that we do different than many of our competitors. The first one is our ability to execute. So we are able to execute this better than some of our competitors or most of our competitors. And the reason is because we have over-invested in operations. And we feel that you're dealing with an asset, you're dealing with individuals, there is a lot of interaction that goes on. And all these small building blocks of execution, all the way from showing the property to signing an agreement, to sending invoice, to responding to service requests, to renewals, etc., the entire 9 yards becomes very critical, and we need to provide good solutions. So that's one thing.
I think that is something that a lot of these co-living companies struggle with, right? Where maybe they've invested a lot in getting people onto their platforms or getting people interested in the idea. But then as soon as you move in, that's when the problems start, right? Yeah. Something's not working right. Maybe, you have this unusual situation, something happens, and the response that you get from the company isn't great, right? But now you're stuck, right? You're locked in, you've signed on the dotted line, you've paid your fees. And it's like, well, I'm already stuck with these guys. I guess I have to, which is unfortunate because I think, like you were saying, these are people's lives, right? This is their day-to-day.
No, absolutely. And there are two very critical metrics which we very closely observe. One is, how long people stay with us, right? Do they complete their entire tenure, which is 11 months in our case? And second, do they renew their contracts? And happy customer typically do that. So that's one thing which we certainly strongly believe that we've done that. And the second important, I would say, differentiator for us is also our technology platform. And we spent the first couple of years building a strong, robust technology platform where there's 100% automation of all the business processes. And we've done a lot of AI and ML implementations because that gives us better insights into risks that we have in our business, opportunities that we have in our business, and the way we manage our operations. So I think these two are areas which I feel we have invested or we have over-invested, and this is something which our investors have also constantly guided us, and they've said, get your basics right, and then everything else is going to be easy in terms of scaling the whole thing. And one last point I would like to add is we've also kept profitability in mind. It's very tempting in this business to burn money and keep getting customers. But we have not compromised on profitability. So we've kept our profitability intact and we've grown this particular business so far.
Yeah, you guys are operationally profitable, if I'm not wrong, right?
Absolutely, and we're proud of that. So I think that's a good achievement, especially we've just been through 3.5 years of journey so far.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So I had a couple of questions there. One of them was about the ML and the AI side of things. Maybe if you could, because I think there's a lot of people that are a part of our audience on YouTube that are interested in AI and machine learning as well. So that's the first question. And then maybe after that, we can talk about as well sort of the journey that you've taken with your investors and raising funds.
There's a lot of, I would say, interaction that we have with our customers, basically our tenants as well as our owners, more so from a tenant. Now, if you look at it, these are in the form of searches. So there are people who are constantly hitting our portal and app. They're looking for properties at a certain price point in certain locations and so on. So from that perspective, there's a lot of intelligence that is being fed into the system, and we're trying to arrive at models which basically tells us where there's higher demand, where there's lesser demand, at what price point, how long it takes us to fill rooms and so on. So that is one. The second thing is also around the risks that we see. So today, when tenants stay with us, we're also constantly monitoring the various activities of the tenant as well as of the asset. And that gives us early indicators whether people will stay for the entire tenure or not, or if there's a fundamental issue with the asset. Maybe the property isn't good and there are just too many service requests and complaints coming. So if you really look at it, we are able to pull all these data together and apply all our algorithms, etc., to arrive at the risks as well as the opportunity.
Just to clarify, you said the activities of the tenant. What do you mean by that?
So activities is, when do they pay rent, what kind of service request complaints they raise, what's going on in social media, what are they talking about us, the CSAT feedback, the inputs that we cover during audits and so on. So it's the entire, from the start till the end, the entire life cycle and interactions during the life cycle. So there's so many information that is coming in the form of signals that we are expected to interpret, process, and make decisions.
That's great. I think, implementing AI and machine learning instead of, hiring a bunch of people to do that kind of busy work makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure you're saving a lot of money as well.
Absolutely. So in fact, our entire technology journey, if you look at it, it can be broken down into two distinct phases. The first phase was getting the BAU system in place, getting the portal right, getting the app right, getting people to interact with us in all forms of the technology platform and integrating it with various subsystems, whether it's a payment system, whether it is a CRM system, whether it's an IVR system, or whether it's fresh tests and so on. Now we are at a journey where we're looking at AI ML, which gives us further efficiencies. So from that perspective, we are in the phase 2 of our journey, and this basically will help us go to the next level.
And this is incredible too, because I think a lot of the people that we have on the show, they're young, right? They're first-time entrepreneurs, and they are certainly not, most of them are certainly not able to accomplish what you guys have accomplished in such a short span of time. I think probably a lot of that has to do with the experience that you had prior to your own room, right?
We come, both Sachin and I, my co-founder, we come from a technology background. And coming from a technology background, we had stronger appreciation for some of these things. So we kept this, I would say, at the at the fundamental level, and we said, let's get this thing right first, and then other things will fall in place.
So then, again, back to my second question, which was about fundraising.
Yeah.
What was the point that you guys decided that? I mean, was it from the beginning that you knew that okay, we're going to need to sort of raise some funds?
We have raised about close to 1.3 million, and this is till our seed round. This 1.3 million has helped us get to this far, and of course, it helps us scale further. But we feel that the opportunity is much bigger at this point of time. The last few months has been all about setting the right fundamentals, the foundation, which we have been able to accomplish to a very large extent. We now feel that there are 3 or 4 levers which we would like to exercise. One is we want to go totally after executive housing, which essentially means instead of having just apartments and houses, we start taking larger buildings. And you'll be happy to know that we already have about 4 such buildings in Electronic City in Bangalore as well as in Manyata and JP Nagar. The idea is to expand on that. The second is we also look at going to other cities. So Hyderabad is something which is right in our assessment, we'd like to go to Hyderabad. So by doing these two and further focusing on our marketing and technology, we feel that we can take this to a very different level. And our goal, if you really look at it, is to go beyond the 1,500, 2,000 beds that we have today and take it to maybe 1 lakh in the next few years.
Wow.
So our fundraising, which is going to be a pre-Series A, is essentially to look for investors who can help us add value beyond capital and help us get to that journey.
Wow, that sounds great. I think you guys are going to do some pretty big things with that investment. But coming back to today, I'm curious to know, what are some of the milestones that Your Own Room has been able to accomplish recently?
We would say we are in two cities. We are in Bangalore and Pune. So we were able to take the concept beyond Bangalore to Pune. And we strongly felt that if you can get it right in maybe one city in the southern part and one maybe west, probably it's a pan-India solution. Second, we have about 1,500 beds, and with all that we have in the pipeline, we are almost going to be 2,000 maybe by the end of the financial year. And I think what I'm more excited about is the order booking. So at this point of time, we're sitting with an order booking of almost 35 crores, which basically means that owners have trusted on us, and they've given us business which probably is going to stand for the next 3 to 5 years. And lastly, I think we have a very solid team in place with some very senior folks, and that gives us the assurance that yes, they will help us get to the next big level as we scale our business.
Wow. I mean, sort of restating what I had said earlier, it's really amazing just to me to hear how much you guys have been able to accomplish in such a short span of time. You had already mentioned a little bit about what the plans for the company are moving forward, but I also want to know what are some of the trends that you see just in the market in general moving forward in the next year, 2 years? What do you think is going to happen? How are things changing?
So firstly, demonetization and RERA, they have had irreversible impact on the residential real estate market. What they've done is they have led to decline of buy and sell. So buy and sell is down. Launch of new projects is also down by more than 50%. The second, the rental yields are low in a residential real estate. It's about 2 to 3%. It was never the area of focus, but if you look at it now, it is one of the most important things. And this needs to be engineered along with the capital appreciation of an asset. So that's something where everyone is now talking about rental yields. Third is there is a huge backlog of unsold properties. There are 500,000 unsold properties across the metros in India.
But okay, so I'm a little bit confused because you hear a lot about India, the population is exploding, there's so many people. So how is it that there's properties that are dormant, that nobody's using?
So if one of the primary reasons is that there are properties, but properties are not in the right locations.
Right.
And second, the city's infrastructure has not kept pace. So unlike in the Western countries where the infrastructure comes first and then the apartments, here it's the other way around. And that essentially has led to clogging of apartments and so on.
Gotcha.
And the other thing is even the price points. I think the price point has been incorrect. So there is a market correction that is going on in the price point. And last, if you look at this whole space, right, all this basically, the solution lies maybe in the form of co-living, because co-living provides better rental yields. Co-living also is an opportunity to create alternate real estate asset class where you can get a return of 6 to 8%. And you'll be surprised that the co-living market today is a $6.5 billion market with only 2.5% penetration. So this is a big opportunity for companies like us and other players to go and take advantage of this. And this is expected to grow to 14 billion with an 8.5% penetration. So the next 3 to 5 years is going to be very, very interesting, where you will see a lot of these co-living players, I would say, succeeding. And the key, of course, is can they execute on their promises?
Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time. Things are changing super fast. Everything that I've heard from, for example, Zolo, No Broker, CoLive, these are companies, startups that we've had on the show. What I've heard is that even 5, 6, 7 years ago, people didn't really know what co-living was, right? Whereas now it's sort of taking India, at least the metros of India, by storm. And I guess even probably some of the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, these startups are popping up now. So yeah, definitely an exciting time. Things are changing really quick, and I'm very privileged to be here to actually cover what's going on and to hear, especially to hear your story. So if you guys want to know more about Prabhat, or you want to know more about his company, Your Own Room, I'll be leaving a couple of links in the description of this video. You can go check those out. And if you have any questions about him or about his company, would love it if you could leave a comment down below. Also, if you know of anybody who you think would be interested in hearing what Prabhat shared with us today, would love it if you could share it with them. And thank you so much for watching this episode. And also, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Sure. Thank you so much, Kalab. I really appreciate this discussion.
For sure. I really appreciate you coming out and taking the time.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah.